Thank you for joining us on this weekend edition of National Focus. I'm Mervin. In the headlines, free movement of persons regime succeeds within the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States. Social welfare official calls on the public to report suspected cases of child abuse. And the OECS to tackle youth unemployment. Details of our headline stories and others after this.
There is a silent, invisible killer in our midst. A killer which largely goes unnoticed as it plies its deadly trade. Its name is secondhand tobacco smoke, which has a far greater impact on persons inhaling this poison than on smokers themselves. Secondhand tobacco smoke is especially detrimental in public places and negatively impacts our national health as well as public health expenditure. Stop this invisible killer now. Say no to secondhand tobacco smoke in public places. A public health message brought to you by the Ministry of Health and the Pan American Health Organization.
Thank you for staying with us. The freedom of movement of people within the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS, has become a success for that organization. OECS Director General Dr. Jules says of all the regimes under the revised Treaty of Bastia, which governs the OECS Economic Union, freedom of movement of people is undoubtedly the most progressive.
We are now at a stage where in every member state you have that freedom of movement. You can go to any of the other OECS states using your driver's license or your passport or some recognized form of national ID. In fact, with your driver's license, your Dominica driver's license, assuming it is valid, wherever you go in the OECS, you can use that driver's license to drive around in that place as well. If you go to another OECS country, you're not going to be subject to a means test. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to have a valid ID, and you can spend a week, 10 days, 6 years, however long you choose. So that for us is a real accomplishment because, while at the level of CSME, there's still a lot of issues to be ironed out. The freedom of movement of people is an unqualified reality in the OECS.
Dr. Jules says currently work is in progress with the free movement of goods.
In fact, in our strategic objectives we set among the goals, looking at the revised Treaty of Bastia. It's providing for the freedom of movement, the growth and development of people, goods, services, capital, and ideas. And each of those categories is important because there are a lot of things that need to be done. In the freedom of movement of goods, for example, there's a lot of work that has to be done and is being done because we have working groups in all the member states working together on that. How do we dismantle the customs regimes that are now in place to allow for the free flow of goods? So that, let us say you have a soap factory in Dominica and you bring in your inputs into Dominica, but you also have a factory in St. Vincent. The raw material that you bring into Dominica that may attract duties, having paid the duties on that, you should be able to send your stock over to St. Lucia or Antigua without incurring additional duties on it.
The OECS Economic Union seeks to create a single financial and economic space between member states, harmonize development of economic activity, as well as bring economic and social progress and cohesion between member states which are balanced and sustainable. In more news, farmers are being called upon to play a substantial role in sustaining exports to regional markets. The Ministry of Trade, Agriculture and Dominica Export-Import Agency, DEXIA, visited Martinique last weekend in an effort to source additional markets for Dominican produce. The Honorable Minister for Agriculture, Johnson Drago, says it is up to the farmers to sustain the markets once they have been established.
We are saying to the farmers that if you are going into yams, we would need you to go into it as a business. We will give the farmers all the technical support they need through the extension divisions of the ministry so that the farmers will be contracted and they will produce on a consistent basis. It cannot be business as usual. you have to see agriculture as your livelihood, and we will take our responsibility to go out there and source the market, but the farmers must help us. They are very, very important and crucial. It's very important and crucial that the farmers play their part, and that is, once we have gotten the market, give us consistent, high-quality produce for export.
In other news, Acting Assistant Chief Welfare Officer Oliver Wallace is calling the nationals to report any suspected cases of child abuse to the Social Welfare Division. Wallace made the appeal during a television discussion at the GIS studios earlier this week. He noted that the long-term effects of child abuse can have a lasting negative impact on society if it is not addressed properly.
Generally, children, students like to tell their friends at school what is happening to them. Inform them. Somebody. Tell them I'm sorry, but understanding what this can do to you, and not just to you, how it can affect me in the long run. Because here's what young people need to understand. If you're having a friend who is being sexually abused, the long-term effect can be because they are being sexually abused and they have lost their self-esteem, their self-worth and everything else. Then they can turn around on you and make you, because they can now become the perpetrator and you will become the victim. So bearing in mind, if you have any knowledge of someone who's been sexually abused, particularly a child, please take some time off and tell somebody.
You're watching National Focus. Still to come, Dominica joined the rest of the world on Thursday in the observance of Girls in ICT Day. Stay with us.
Did you know the Caribbean Court of Justice is 2 courts in 1? The CCJ has 2 functions: an original jurisdiction, which deals with your right to move between CARICOM countries freely, and your right to move your money and your business. This is the basis of the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, and the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and an appellate jurisdiction to hear appeals from courts of those countries which decide to use it as their final court of appeal and no longer go to the Privy Council. All CARICOM member states who have signed the agreement establishing the CCJ are members of the CCJ.
Welcome back. Students of the Dominica State College are of the view that in order for the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, the CSME, to work, emphasis needs to be placed on reaching the everyday person. The students took part in a 6-day tour in St. Lucia to better understand the workings of the CSME. Anya Tuse is one of those students and says the approach of CARICOM should be a grassroots one.
Go to schools, have talks, hold conferences, have meetings, come on a grassroots level with the people to inform them of CSME. Because most people are like, CSME, what is CSME about? Many people don't know what CSME is about. So by CARICOM coming together and informing the locals, the businessmen, the students, the farmers, the lawyers, the doctors about the benefits of CSME, I think that would be beneficial to each and every country, because regional integration is about bringing the people together. And without any knowledge of how we can come together, it will not work.
She says getting students on board was a good idea to tap into the minds of the young people, and this will help in the long run.
If from young you know what CSME is, as an adult, you will already know of the benefits. So if you know I'm a teacher, I have my 2 A-levels, I have my bachelor's degree, I can leave Dominica and go to Jamaica to work. I can leave Dominica and go to St. Lucia to work. So by tapping into the minds of the young people, to me, that is what needs to occur in order for us to move forward with CARICOM and CSME.
Dominica joined the countries across the world on Thursday in the observance of Girls in ICT Day. It is a result of a declaration by the International Telecommunications Union, the ITU, the primary body for telecommunications in ICT of the United Nations. It is an opportunity to recognize the invaluable contribution and achievement which girls are making in ICT advancement universally. Honorable Minister for Information, Science, Telecommunications and Technology, Honorable Kelva Darrow, says the view of girls in ICT has changed significantly over the years.
One of the fundamental changes that we've seen is the attitude towards women, particularly young girls, towards ICT training and ICT skills. We now see the figures as it relates to the young women who are now doing ICT courses, particularly computer science and programming, that has increased from previous years. This is significant simply because we have now seen a greater interest by young women, and that speaks volumes, simply because a lot of these career opportunities were dominated by men, and we've now seen an influx of women into these areas. And women are now more open to learning the skills and more pursuing careers in these areas. And I believe moving forward, we'll continue to see more women generate greater interest, particularly the fact that ICT is all over. It's all over, and we have to continue to encourage all young women and girls to take advantage of all of the opportunities that are available.
The Honorable Minister noted that his ministry has put plans in place to encourage girls to get involved in the ICT sector.
The Ministry of Information Technology has in fact put a 2-year plan in place in the very first instance to ensure that we can target particularly some of the vulnerable communities, the rural areas. And I'm hoping that the young women, the girls in these communities will take part and they will take advantage of the opportunities that we have. We are looking to establish some of the telecenters, and I believe the young women in these communities should look forward for the training opportunities that will be provided. We've also looking to work closely with the Ministry of Education at the schools to ensure that every student, and we know that a number of our schools, the populations are dominated by young women, they will also take advantage of the opportunities that are there for them. Through the ministry as well, we have additional training that will be offered, whether it's locally or overseas. And we are hoping also to target some for women who have keen interest and who are very ICT savvy for these opportunities and these training programs.
National HIV/AIDS Unit Representative Lester Guy is calling on the youth to play their part in the fight against HIV/AIDS discrimination. He commented that the stigma associated with AIDS plays a big role in the number of persons willing to get HIV/AIDS tested.
One of the greatest challenges that we are having right now is that persons who are HIV positive are unwilling to access care. Why? Because stigma and discrimination keeps to be popping up in head ever so often, or too often for our liking, and persons are refusing to access care because they think if I come to the doctor, if I come to the Princess Margaret Hospital, or if I come to the clinic, or if I come to the office to talk to Mr. Guy, that somebody will see me and they'll assume or think that I'm HIV positive, and then their attitude towards me will change.
He also encouraged students to be aware of the way they approach or react to persons who have AIDS.
Stigma really is an attitude. Discrimination is someone's behavior. How do you treat somebody who you know or may be HIV positive? For me, I'm addressing you, especially young persons, because you're the ones who are going to make the change in your distant future. So if you know somebody is HIV, if you have a family member or friend or an enemy, if you want to say, you need to be very careful or aware of your attitude towards that person. Because what will happen, if persons are not accessing care, sooner or later, HIV will find itself at your doorstep.
The National HIV/AIDS Unit representative called for a change in attitude when it comes to HIV/AIDS patients.
One of the reasons that I am stressing on stigma and discrimination is because we need, and let me reinforce it, we need persons' attitude to change when it comes to dealing with persons who are affected or living with HIV and AIDS. And not only the clients, even their family members, their children. We have young persons whose parents may be HIV positive, and you find that they're being discriminated or their stigma increasing with these young persons.
Guy encouraged the youth to take responsibility for the sexual activity.
Our youth, which is some of the people that we consider most at-risk population, are some of the ones who are also affected. And I want to commend the young persons in Dominica also, because right now we know that there's a sexual revolution going on, but the young persons are taking care of themselves. So when they come to the clinic and when we do educational sessions, they are listening to us. So what do we advise young persons to do, or what do we advise persons to do? Educate yourself, inform yourself. It may be a 1 chance, or it may be a 10 chance situation, but you can contract HIV. So you have to be very, very cognizant of the fact that you need to be very, very careful when it comes to your sexual health.
The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States is devising a plan to tackle youth unemployment among member states. The OECS Director General Dr. Didacus Jules says youth unemployment anywhere in the world is twice the rate of adult unemployment. This is of great concern to the organization.
It's one thing for you as an adult with experience to have lost your job and therefore be searching for a job, but at least there's something you can fall back on, a prior experience. Maybe you could do there's some skill you have that you can use. A young person leaving school, 5 years, if you spend 5 years without having a job, you begin to feel hopeless in the society. Probably it engenders feelings of rage as well, because you figure, there's just no opportunity opening up for you. And you don't have any prior experience to fall back in that would enable you to, make use of self-employment opportunities. I mean, you have to be exceptional with a real entrepreneurial impulse to do this. So we're very concerned about youth unemployment and what needs to be done in the context of these initiatives to eradicate that.
Global youth unemployment stood at 12.6% in 2013. When the Dominican Labour Party came into office in 2000, the unemployment rate stood at 20%. The DLP administration has since intensified its efforts to reduce that rate by expanding the Youth Development Division to include the Dominica Youth Business Trust, which seeks to assist potential and active young business persons. The DLP also launched the National Employment Program in 2013, which seeks to create employment for young people. To date, over 1,000 jobs have been created through the NEP for young people. In its 2014 manifesto, the administration said it will continue to reduce the levels of unemployment to 5%. And that's the English news. McPherson St. Luce is next with the Creole highlights.
Allô tout le monde, bienvenue à cette nouvelle en créole. Non moins c'est McPherson St. Luce. Premièrement, travail qui continue bien formidable à ces chimie en tout cas oui. Membre Parlement Honorable Reginald Austrie visité projet à jeudi.
Et ça nous a fait, c'est après projet Glo là, West Coast Water Supply, qui Capucin, nous tenons pour manger toutes ces chimées là parce que nous devons fouiller tout pour nous mettre ces pipes là. Et l'année passée, le Premier ministre a nous 2,5 millions de dollars pour manger ces chimées là. Mais comme ça, nous tenions le problème avec Public Works. Nous tenions pour contract avec Public Works, pour Dipcon, l'autre compagnie, l'autre pays. Il y avait 4 semaines qui nous avons commencé avant, mais nous tenions un problème parce que nous faisons ces dalles là, ces drains là, nous faisons ces drains là depuis l'année passée. Mais nous avons spray asphalte, parce que l'idée là c'est pour mettre un asphalte. Mais quand nous pas de contract là, pas satisfait avec la qualité asphalte là, quand ça nous faut prendre une décision pour mettre un concrete. Et ça on a fait là, ça on a vu aujourd'hui, c'est ça nous a fait. Nous avons continué à manger chimie qui nous commence depuis l'année passée. Et là nous finissons manger le monde ça là, nous avons des petits morceaux encore pour nous faire la motte, c'est-à-dire pour passer cortège, et un petit morceau capucin pour nous manger. Et là nous faisons ça, nous avons plan là nous tenons, nous avons accompli plan ça là pour réhabiliter le chimie là, Tantan, pour vivre capucin.
Honorable Austrie fait parole qui est bien satisfait et puis travail là.
Je suis bien satisfait avec le travail qu'a fait là. Je crois que le Premier ministre là fait un gros effort parce que nous avons pour dépenser $600,000 à 6 sites avant. Parce que, comme on dit, nous avons des problèmes avec Public Works. Depuis ça fait, nous avons le ministre Public Works, le ministre Ian Pinad, qui a bien supporté un projet là. City, Kendall, Johnson, Lance, tout le monde a ministre là, mettez quoi ensemble. nous avons fait ça pour faire. Nous avons dit qu'on n'est pas bien, ou que toujours nous avons des petits problèmes avec bus drivers qui ne peuvent pas respecter. Parce que ouais, Dominique, nous avons l'habitude, nous voulons développement, nous avons demandé pour développement, mais nous ne pouvons pas faire sacrifice pour développement. Nous avons des gens qui ont babillé, mais nous avons dit la majorité des gens qui ont passé, ils n'ont pas mind rester 15 minutes, 20 minutes pour nous faire travailler pour se passer parce qu'ils savent, là nous finissons, morceau chimé, ça la monde, ça la vie qui est plus douce. Parce que c'est un père pour te descendre là, comment tu nous pour l'argent chimé là, manger yon c'est am détour là. Et bien moi bien satisfait, qualité de travail là nous taper. Un groupe jeune book on voit c'est un book jeune book qui subcontract à ce projet là il faire un bon travail.
Alors nouvelle ministre agriculture ni espoir pour secteur cela. Parole cela sorti au ministère agriculture honorable Johnson Drago. Ministre Drago kakui asimoun secteur cela pour chenli vivant puis gouvernement là pour assister yo.
Eh bien oui, les mots finis comme ministère, moi je un secteur qui tenait plusieurs travail à aller pour. Moi c'est un des gens qui j'ai dit que ministre agriculture même fait moun ka débiter contre parce que yo pas dire assez comme ça yo ka fait. Mais ministre agriculture c'est un ministre qui est important assez Dominicien j'ai fait la vie en agriculture et puis ça va continuer. Ça m'a fait c'est pour faire ça mon joindre plus grand. Et bien mon content pour assez à penser qu'à vivre en terre qu'à planter encore et bien travail moins comme ministre c'est pour travailler puis ministre trade d'exia pour qui nous taper la place là pour ces produits ça yo c'est à partir qu'à planter et bien mon content qui nous joue noyer matinique et puis nous ouais en place en secteur en avenue là nous ça increase la place là si nous fait ça nous supposé faire un bon manière pour la place matinique so mon dire encore c'est oxas là pour continuer ça yo fait merci pour ça yo fait mais les arrivé là nous pour move as affaire exporter produits à un autre level à un higher level pour prendre avantage la place là qui dehors.
Alors, la nouvelle organisation OECS qui a positionné COI pour faire plus de business et puis Martinique. Parole celle-là sorti au directeur général Dr. Didikos Jules pendant qu'il était assis en visite officielle ici. Dr. Jules était ici assis en mission pour discuter manière OECS sa promouvoir potentiel exportation en région. Martinique c'est membre OECS et puis Dr. Jules n'a espoir que ça ait ouvert chemin pour faire business et puis payer ça. OECS c'est 10 pays en parmi Dominique, Antigua, Saint-Lucie, St. Kitts, St. Vincent and Grenadines, British Virgin Islands en parmi d'autres. Dr. Jules aussi fait parole que OECS qui l'avantage faire business et puis Cuba depuis l'Amérique a été embargo pays là. Sinon, Dr. Didikos Jules, produit local c'est meilleur choix pour exportation. Et puis finalement, le gouvernement Dominique a poussé devant et puis développement en La Pointe. Membre parlement honorable Ian Pinard visité la communauté là jeudi.
Ça nous a fait à La Pointe. Et nous avons regardé qu'on expande le village là. La Pointe avant était petit, était cramp. Tout le monde était resté bon de la mer. Actuellement, le gouvernement Labour venu et puis le gouvernement Labour vend close 300 lots à La Pointe. Et ça fait La Pointe un gros village actuellement. La partie de La Pointe, ils ont caillou, ils ont terre, et puis ils ont fait proud. Les gens ont caillou et puis on caillou, ils ont fait aussi un monde. Et puis le gouvernement qui fait ça pour La Pointe. Nous allons, ça nous recognize village expansion là, nous tenions un water tank. Et puis le water tank ça a été là presque 20 années. Donc il était là pour le village là, bord de la mer. Mais depuis nous expandons, nous réalisons que nous avons besoin d'un plus gros tank. Et puis le gouvernement ça a fait un gros tank plus haut qui bat tout le monde Union Estate glue. So il n'y a pas de problème avec glue La Pointe because of tank ça. So ça c'est ça nous avons fait.
Messieurs, mesdames, ça c'est tout pour nouvelles à Créole pour à présent. Non, moi c'est McPherson St. Luce. Ni un bon week-end. Au revoir.
Coming up next, your tip of the day.
Wash your hands. I am Adora Tuse, health educator from the Ministry of Health. Proper hand washing protects against the spread of many common illnesses and germs. Wash your hands often with soap and water, or you may use a hand sanitizer. Remember, clean hands save lives. Protect yourself.
A message from the Health Promotion of the Ministry of Health.
It's easy to get in a diet rut even if you're loading up on flavorful fruits and veggies. The solution? Have plenty of spices, fresh herbs and lemons at your cooking beck and call. It's amazing what a little dash of spice, a sprinkle of herbs, pinch of lemon zest or squirt of lemon juice can do to liven up a dish and your diet. The best part, they contain almost no calories. Experiment with your dinner tonight. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. We always welcome your suggestions and comments. Drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm or visit our website at news.gov.dm. Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/GIS News Dominica, and follow our Twitter at GIS Dominica. You can also catch up on past National Focus newscasts on our GIS Dominica YouTube channel. From all of us here on the GIS News production team, I'm Mervin. Have a great weekend.